warm welcome to this fresh edition of World Konnect. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and this show will get you in the next half an hour all the top stories that are making it to the world headlines. And let's set the ball rolling with the focus of the show. US President Barack Obama endorses Hillary Clinton, and with that comes yet another major boost as prominent Democrats Senator Elizabeth Warren and US Vice President Joe Biden also rallied their support behind former First Lady. Indo-US ties see a new chapter as Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses joint session of US Congress. Talks of leaving behind constraints of the past, calls for united fight against terrorism. Britain leaders get anxious moments as EU exit referendum date of June 23rd approaches. Former Prime Ministers Tony Blair and John Major warned that a vote to leave the Union would jeopardize the unity of the United Kingdom. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon pained over undue pressure from a member, Saudi-led coalition's name removed from a list of those violating child rights. And he's all of 25 and he has started the Food for All Ghana initiative to ensure that his fellow countrymen are not denied right to food. US President Barack Obama's endorsement for his former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton as a presumptive Democratic nominee made it to the worldwide headlines. Obama and Clinton were rivals during the 2008 Democratic primary that Obama won. Meanwhile, prominent Democrats Senator Elizabeth Warren and US Vice President Joe Biden have also voiced their support with Hillary Clinton. And overwhelmed Hillary said, and I quote, "It means the world to me to know that he has my back in this election," unquote.
US President Barack Obama endorsed his former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for president and urged Bernie Sanders supporters to rally around the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee. And this is how he did it.
Across thousands of miles in all 50 states, tens of millions of Americans have made their voices heard. Today, I just want to add mine. I want to congratulate Hillary Clinton on making history as the presumptive Democratic nominee for President of the United States.
Obama and Clinton were rivals during the 2008 Democratic primary that Obama won. Clinton went on to serve as Obama's Secretary of State during his first term in office. Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton welcomed President Barack Obama's endorsement, saying it meant the world to her that her former rival has her back in the 2016 campaign.
Everything from fighting terrorism to preventing the spread of nuclear weapons to climate change negotiations to obviously the Bin Laden operation. And through it all, my esteem for him just kept growing, and it means the world to me.
Meanwhile, prominent Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren and US Vice President Joe Biden have also voiced their support for Hillary Clinton and taken aim at Republican Donald Trump, saying his leadership would destroy the rule of law in the US. Over in Washington, D.C., Democratic presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders rallied supporters for the district's June 14th primary, just hours after US President Barack Obama endorsed his rival Hillary Clinton. But even before her victory, Sanders began taking steps to turn his newfound political influence into an enduring progressive movement.
It would be extraordinary if the people of Washington, our nation's capital, stood up and told the world that they are ready to lead this country into a political revolution.
Earlier, keeping up the momentum, Donald Trump, the presumptive Republican presidential candidate, thanked his supporters and sought to reach out to others who question whether he can beat likely Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, as 6 states held nominating contest on June 8th, Super Tuesday.
Tonight we close one chapter in history and we begin another. Our campaign received more primary votes than any GOP campaign.
So, till it's finally over and when Obama endorses Hillary Clinton, the question is, how much of a boost will it give his former Secretary of State? And will it come out in the right places? Only time will tell what Obama's endorsement could do for her.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address was overwhelmingly hailed by the US Congress members. It was punctuated on numerous occasions by US Congress, standing ovations on almost every line, drawing loud cheers. The 45-minute insightful speech of Prime Minister Modi covered all major aspects between India and the United States, particularly the strategic ties and civil nuclear cooperation, further consolidating the ties between world's largest and oldest democracies.
It was a historic milestone in Indo-US ties, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the joint sitting of the US Congress, becoming the 5th Indian PM to do so. Terming the US Congress as a temple of democracy which encouraged and empowered other democracies the world over, Prime Minister Modi said the two nations should leave constraints of the past behind as foundations of the future are firmly in place. Noting that terrorism threatens world peace and order from Africa to Asia, Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed concerns over terrorism being incubated in India's neighborhood and reached out to all those who believe in humanity to join hands and defeat the menace.
The need of the hour is for us to deepen our security cooperation and base it on a policy that isolates those who harbor, support, and sponsor terrorists. That does not distinguish between good and bad terrorists, and that delinks religion from terrorism.
Prime Minister Modi complimented the US Congress for sending a clear message to those who preach and practice terrorism for political gains. Talking about bilateral relations, he termed Washington as an indispensable partner of New Delhi.
In every sector of India's forward march, I see the US as an indispensable partner. Many of you also believe that a stronger and prosperous India is in America's strategic interest. Let us work together to convert shared ideals into practical cooperation.
The Prime Minister underlined the ways to make a difference in a changing global scenario by promoting cooperation, not dominance, connectivity, not isolation, respect for global commons, inclusive, not exclusive mechanisms, and adherence to international rules and norms. Prime Minister Modi also utilized the occasion to call for focus on transformational ideas of creating value for our societies, working for long-term benefits, shaping partnerships, being a bridge to a more united, humane and prosperous world. Prime Minister Modi, who became the first Indian PM to have addressed the joint session of US Congress in the past 10 years, concluded with the words of renowned American poet Walt Whitman to a loud applause.
The orchestra have sufficiently tuned their instruments. The baton has given the signal. And to that, if I might add, there is a new symphony in play.
Prime Minister's address was overwhelmingly hailed by US Congress members who interrupted his address more than 40 times to cheer him, a few times by standing. In his insightful speech that lasted about 45 minutes, the Prime Minister covered all major aspects of the growing relationship between India and the US, particularly strategic ties and civil nuclear cooperation.
Former World Bank economist Pedro Pablo Kuczynski closely won the Peru presidential election with a 50.12% over his opponent Keiko Fujimori's 49.88%. Kuczynski's win was Peru's tightest presidential election in decades. Fujimori conceded defeat to centrist Kuczynski on Friday and said that her populist party's solid majority in Congress would wage a watchful opposition during his government. Kuczynski is slated to take office on July 28. Justice delayed is justice denied, as the cliche goes. It's almost an endless wait for the families of 43 missing students in Mexico, and for them it seems this adage comes true. These trainee teachers were abducted from the southwestern Mexican city of Iguala in November 2014. More than 1.5 years from now, the government has now announced that hundreds of suspects have been detained.
It has been more than 1.5 years, but justice for the families of 43 missing students in Mexico continues to appear a distant reality. The abduction of trainee teachers from the southwestern Mexican city of Iguala in November 2014 caused an international uproar over human rights abuses in Mexico. Families and rights activists have been accusing officials of not doing enough to find their loved ones. Government officials have now announced that hundreds of suspects have been detained during investigations. Government also faced allegations that it stonewalled the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to reach the truth. The panel, in its report, rejected government's claim that the students were burnt in the dump. Justice officials and the Mexico government denied charges of hampering IACHR's probe and said they have not stopped collaboration with the IACHR.
The investigation should continue, and the conclusion of the technical teams should not mean an end to the investigation of the Iguala case, nor an end to the collaboration with the Inter-American Human Rights Commission.
The announcement of arrest in the case came after authorities dismissed 2 senior officials from Mexico's prosecutors who were investigating the case. Despite the changes, embattled Thomas Zeron, the head of Attorney General's Criminal Investigation Agency, still keeps his post. Zeron has come under criticism after a report questioned the circumstances in which a charred bone fragment was discovered in a river. He came under the spotlight in April when the team of international experts presented video and photographs suggesting he was at the site where the bone was found a day before its official discovery, but made no report of his visit. Demands for Zeron's removal have been growing since then.
The call is for Thomas Zeron de Lucio to leave the investigation because he is the main author concerning the real story.
Responding to criticism, Zeron has said the visit was legal and that he had been accompanied by representatives of the UN Human Rights Office. On the contrary, Mexico's UN Human Rights Office said it had not accompanied Zeron.
Former British Prime Ministers Tony Blair and John Major warned on Thursday that a vote to leave the European Union would jeopardise the unity of the United Kingdom. They said it will undermine peace in Northern Ireland and bolster the Scottish independence movement. Speaking together in Northern Ireland, the 2 leaders, who both played important roles in the province's peace process in the 1990s, warned that unity was effectively on the ballot paper. Britain holds the EU exit referendum on 23rd of June.
That it would be an historic mistake to do anything that has any risk of destabilising the complicated and multi-layered constitutional settlement that underpins the present stability in Northern Ireland.
The European Union executive proposed on Tuesday making EU development aid and trade ties with African and other poor countries conditional on their cooperation in curbing migration to Europe. A deal with Turkey has cut the arrivals in Greece to a trickle. More than 1.3 million refugees reached Europe last year. Meanwhile, EU leaders are concerned about a long-term prospect of massive migration from Africa, which remains the world's poorest continent. Air France has cancelled up to 30% of its flights as the pilots of the national airlines have started a 4-day strike from Saturday. The airline, however, said it would prioritise journeys to cities that were hosting Euro tournament matches. The pilots' union want the government to scrap new labour laws, which reportedly will make it easier to hire and fire people. It is the latest of the unions in the country to react to the controversial law. Rubbish will not be collected in Paris until Wednesday. Train services recently resumed after a 9-day strike. French president has warned unions against disrupting the tournament. The latest UN report has questioned Saudi-led coalition for death of children in Yemen. Last month, the United Nations, in its shocking report, questioned the role of Saudi-led coalition for deaths of children in Yemen. The report claimed that the coalition was responsible for 60% of the 1,953 children recorded as killed or maimed in the conflict in 2015. The Saudis vigorously disputed the report and have blamed Houthi rebels for this.
My latest report on children and armed conflict has documented the harrowing situation of Yemen's children. There has been fierce reaction to my decision to temporarily remove the Saudi-led coalition countries from the report's annex. This was one of the most painful and difficult decisions I have had to make. It is unacceptable for member states to exert undue pressure.
Diplomatic feuds are generally kept behind closed doors, but this one is out in the open. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's open expression of his pain and difficulty to remove Saudi Arabia's name from a list of violators of child rights gave further volume to the reports that all is not well between the world body and Riyadh. The Saudi ambassador to the United Nations, Abdullah al-Mualimi, denied pressurizing the United Nations, but said that his country's name was included in the list without following established procedures.
There was no communications with the government of Saudi Arabia, with the governments of the other coalition members. There was no communication with the legitimate government of Yemen. And as such, the quality of the information has to be suspect in that process.
Last month, the United Nations in its report questioned the role of Saudi-led coalition for the deaths of children in Yemen. The report claimed that the coalition was responsible for 60% of the 1,953 children recorded as killed or maimed in the conflict of 2015. The Saudis vigorously disputed the report. There have been reports of Saudi Arabia pressurizing the United Nations and even threatening to cut its share of funding. The Saudi-led coalition, made up of several Arab countries, is fighting Houthi rebels in Yemen since March 2015, aimed at preventing Houthi rebels and forces loyal to Yemen's deposed President Ali Abdullah Saleh from taking power. Saudis had blamed the Houthis for the deaths of Yemeni children.
Forces aligned with Libya's unity government said that they had taken control of the port of Sirte, making further gains in Islamic State's North African stronghold. Brigades largely composed of fighters from Misrata advanced this week to the perimeter of the city's center after launching a counterattack against ISIS last month. The brigades are part of an operation by Libya's UN-backed government of national accord. And now let's take a look at some more stories that are catching attention across the globe.
The Maldives is an Islamic country. We come together in one united opposition. We believe it's the infrastructure through which
John Williams, composer of Hollywood's memorable scores including Star Wars and Jaws, was honored by the American Film Institute. 84-year-old Williams received the Lifetime Achievement Award at a star-studded gala dinner on Thursday. John Williams has more than 150 film scores to his name. Many of the tunes have become embedded into pop culture, such as Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones and Harry Potter. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child opened for the first of several previews at the central London venue. The story was adapted from a story written by J.K. Rowling and director John Tiffany and brought to the stage by playwright Jack Thorne. Fans were thrilled with the story, which focuses on the title character, that is Harry Potter, his two friends Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. The story also follows his youngest son Albus struggles to deal with being the son of the famous wizard. Well, as the Copa America and Euro fever grips the world over, a small Mexican town, Chichihualco, is struggling to sustain the art of handcrafted footballs. The handcrafted football actually struggles to stay in game, as this Mexican town finds it increasingly difficult to sustain the lost tradition.
Football is in the air as the world talks Copa America. The French capital is ready for European Championship. Meanwhile, a small Mexican town, Chichihualco, is struggling to sustain the art of handcrafted footballs. For many in this place, teaching football is a family business. 72-year-old Virginia has been tirelessly putting together 5 footballs a day. She now gets just 54 cents for making a ball, and it's difficult to survive on the traditional practice.
We lack everything. Right now, we don't have beans or salt. We're here, but we have nothing. We are truly poor.
At most, I can make 4 footballs daily, and I end up really tired because it takes me all day. And for 50 cents, it doesn't add up.
Stiff competition from low-priced imported products have pushed the hand-stitched balls to the periphery. Still, the local manufacturers vow for the quality of their products.
I don't want to be critical, but imported balls often don't have the right weight or dimensions.
The low earnings from this occupation has also triggered people to look into other sources of income. Some have even turned to drug trafficking. And the region is known for being the country's top producer of opium poppies and marijuana. This has also impacted the business of football. Despite this, sports lovers continue to play with the country's town-made footballs all over Mexico.
Well, he's all of 25 years of age who has started the Food for All Ghana initiative to ensure that his fellow countrymen are not denied right to food. For Chef Elijah Amo-Addo, it all started when he saw a homeless man collecting food scraps for others. The 25-year-old has a vision to feed the 27 million people of Ghana.
Hunger has the potential of becoming a global security issue. At a time when a number of countries are struggling with drought and food insecurity, Chef Elijah Amo-Addo has started the Food for All Ghana initiative to ensure that his fellow countrymen are not denied of this basic necessity. It all started when seeing a homeless man collecting food scraps for others. Addo started thinking that Ghana will be able to feed its entire population. The 25-year-old believes that by educating and inspiring more people to help those in need, the 27 million people of Ghana will be well fed.
We believe Africa produces enough food, complemented with what we import to supplement our food production. However, inefficiencies within our food supply chain has resulted in over 40% of food going waste within the supply chain.
Addo's principle is simple. Unused and excess food products and food are received from manufacturers and suppliers. Volunteers then visit orphanages, hospitals, schools and communities and cook food for those in need. Extra ingredients are also given to them to be used later on. This helps bridge the gap between the plenty and scarce. So, Food for All program is all about cutting waste, linking suppliers and distributors and encouraging more companies to help feed the hungry.
Well, this brings us to the end of this edition of World Konnect. Do send us your feedbacks. You can write to us on our email ID, that is worldkonnect.ddnews@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. But as we take your leave, here are some images of 70th anniversary celebrations of Thai King Bhumibol Adulyadej's ascent to the throne. Take a look. Goodbye.